My name is Peter J. Dumas, and I'm not your average criminal defense attorney. I don't help people get away with crimes. I help them get a grip. At the law offices of Peter J. Dumas, we believe in one thing: accountability with dignity. Maybe you texted your getaway driver mid robbery. Maybe you thought your burner phone wouldn't be traced because you turned off Bluetooth. Maybe, just maybe, you posted your crimes to your own Instagram story. And now you're looking at hard time and harder conversations with your grandma. That's where I come in. I'm not here to argue that you were framed by the deep state or that the drugs weren't yours. I'm here to help you say the words every judge longs to hear. Your Honor, I was a complete dillhole. We offer services like guilty plea coaching, apology letter spell check, mugshot makeover consultation, and our exclusive Sorry I Did That merch package to wear at sentencing. Because at the law offices of Peter J. Dumas, we don't run from consequences. We walk toward them in loafers with our heads held high. So if you've recently been a complete dill hole, don't call a high-powered shark who promises to get you off scot-free. Call me, Peter J. Dumas, attorney at law, the law offices of Peter J. Dumas. We don't make excuses, we make grown-ups.
Well, hello there, my friend, and welcome back to my, I'm trying to think of a cool thing to say, my second story office in an historic home in the oil heritage region of Western Pennsylvania. It's Gavin Fish. Yeah, that's stupid. Okay, welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is my channel. Here we talk about true crime. We like to cut past the fluff. We like to cut past the sensationalism. But every once in a while, there's a case that is just so sensational that we really can't cut past much of it at all because it's just crazy how crazy it is. And the case that we're talking about tonight is the case of the murder of Judge Kevin Mullins, which, as you guys know, because this is like our 35th, 36th video on this case, it is just a crazy, crazy case. To talk about what has been going on in this case, I'd like to welcome back Elizabeth Jones from Hillbilly Crime. Elizabeth, welcome back.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
We are always glad you're here. You've been a busy little girl down there, right? You've been working hard. I've been seeing you like very active on social media with just stuff that's going on surrounding the case down there in Letcher County. What's been going on?
Well, more is starting to come out. Um, I had that video of the preacher man for months, probably 6 months. I shared it with you whenever I first got it.
Yeah.
But I never thought to put a sticker over it of the bad part of the video. It
Yes.
never dawned on me. So one day I was sitting here and somebody messaged me and they said, "Have you seen the video of the preacher man that's going around Facebook?" And I was like, "Facebook? What are you talking about?" And they said it's in a lot of the private groups. And so I was like, "No, send it to me." And so they did, and it was the video, the same one that I had. And they had taken one of the big blue thumbs, and they had stuck it on there, the blue thumb on there. And it made me think about it. And I thought, well, I can do that too. It wasn't covering it completely, but you couldn't really tell what it was, you know?
Mm,
So I went ahead and put a police um,
like a
shield,
badge. Yeah.
the police shield. I stuck that sticker over top of it. And so it was double stickered. And I shared the video because, one of the things that I had noticed is that they got really comfortable with the fact that no videos had come out. And even though that one was making the rounds, no, it had not come out. Nobody knew what it was that was going around,
Why don't we real
secretly.
quick? Let's just set the stage here for people who don't know. Okay, Judge Kevin Mullins was a district judge down in there in Letcher County, Kentucky. His former bailiff, and I mean, sometimes they describe him as friends, sometimes not. But Sheriff Mickey Steins walked into his chambers, told everybody to leave, and filled him full of holes. We understand there are 9 shots now. I had heard 8 before, but now we know from court filings that there were 9 shots. Then he just like walked out. There was a whole police response. He came back and he's like, "Yeah, y'all, I did it." So this is a case where it's not who done it. It's we're trying to figure out why he did it, and one of the things that had come out, well, prior to the shooting, was 2 women had filed a suit. One woman named Sabrina Adkins, the other named Jennifer Hill. Jennifer Hill has sadly passed away. They had filed a suit against Mickey Steins in his capacity as sheriff for basically he should have known that his deputy Ben Fields was SAing these women in the county jail. Well, in the courthouse really, but they were in the jail. He was in charge of putting little GPS trackers on them, and he was trading favors for favorable treatment, right? So when you're talking about the preacher man, let's set the stage for those who don't know. Who is this guy? Why is he germane to the murder of Kevin Mullins?
Well, we call him the preacher man, but his name is Michael Clark. And he was a boy. He's actually from the exact same little town that I'm from. So I'm very familiar with him. He he was an addict. He got hooked into the opioid crisis, as many of us did back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And he ended up having like 8 drug trafficking convictions, which in 2019, he got out of prison in 2018. And or at least I don't know, whenever you go look at his charges and the dates on them all, it's all kind of confusing. I think he was last sentenced on the very last one like in 2018 or
Okay.
something, and then it seemed
That feels
right
recent, but
after that,
I'm an
yeah,
old
right
man.
after that, he got a pardon. He received a full pardon by Governor Matt Bevin, and it pardoned all of his convictions. And they were not even expungible, they were not even eligible for a pardon. And so there's a whole lot of questions surrounding that whole thing.
What was the public
Why?
reason for the pardon? What was the public
Well, you
reason?
tell me.
Well,
You
I'm
tell me,
asking
and
you.
well, I guess it was just because he accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior,
Well,
and now all of a sudden he can get on a stage with a microphone and tell people that he just got out of prison. I mean, that's the only thing that I know that would, that they could say he was given a pardon for. I mean, I honestly do not know. A humanitarian pardon is what he was given. I think if you
I didn't even know
asked,
that's a thing.
well, I asked Siri about his pardon, and Siri said, "I have no idea what you're talking about. This does not show up in Kentucky's pardons." So I got a little bit more specific and gave him a little bit more information, and Siri came back and said, "Oh, yeah, that's a humanitarian pardon." So I guess they are equating him to someone who has carried a family of children out of a burning building, or a fireman who saved people at 9/11.
Okay,
That's the only
how's he
thing.
connected to Judge Mullins?
Well, I think Judge Mullins was one of the last judges who sentenced him, so he was one of his judges in one of his cases. And he worked for ARC, which was a big rehab treatment facility in the state of Kentucky. And it just, kind of the way that it all came together, the judge and this big Senate Bill 90 pilot program was starting in the court system, where they were starting to try and send more people to rehab for drug related crimes instead of, sending them to prison, giving them a second chance. But all it ended up becoming, because everybody was profiting from this, everybody was profiting in some way, that instead of giving people a second chance and kind of helping the addict, then the um, non-violent addict,
Yeah.
but it ended up becoming a, just a cycle. They were putting everybody in treatment. It didn't really matter what your crime was, even if you were in jail for child support. If you had went for a DUI, they started putting everybody in treatment who weren't addicts, who didn't need treatment. You
How
know,
was ARC
um,
funded?
well, they
Do you
were a
know?
for-profit company. They weren't a nonprofit. Now, this past week, one of the biggest updates, MCHC, is Mountain Comprehensive Health Corporation, I think is the name of it, something like that. But
Hmm.
they're called MCHC. They are a local clinic who took over the treatment of our Letcher County Jail inmates, and they had jumped on that piggyback with ARC, and started doing the treatment. And this past week, the word is that two of the doctors, Dr. Breeding and one of the Dr. Hattons, were escorted out and off of the property, and they have had the feds in at the hospital in Whitesburg, at the pharmacies. It wasn't just in this county either. They've been spotted in 3 or 4 surrounding counties, and none of their prescriptions are allowed to be filled. All of their scripts have been pulled.
Holy
All of
cow.
their Yeah, it's a big, big, big deal. So I think that this has been an offshoot of the ARC investigation, because they had an FBI investigation into them for Medicaid fraud. And so I think that it has, kind of migrated on down to us. The feds have been here for a while now, because right next to us in Pike County, we've seen charges for one of the judges in Pikeville. He has been indicted and brought up on charges federally. So
Did
the
this
feds are in.
start? Did the feds coming in? Did this start with Mickey Stein's shooting Kevin Mullins, or did it predate that?
I honestly have no idea, but you know as well as I do that the feds do not work fast at all.
Yeah.
And so if they have brought down this indictment on Judge Hall in Pikeville, I think they've probably been on to that for a while. And then
Yeah.
that means if they've been on to that case in Pikeville, that means they've just been next door, you know? And a lot of the speculation right now is, was Mullins talking to the feds? Was
Oh.
Mullins himself talking to the feds? Because I think that there have been a ton of financial crimes. I have said many times that I think Eastern Kentucky is the white collar crime capital of the world.
Well,
Absolutely.
so I was going to say, why do you say that? But why do you think that is?
Because there's no oversight. There's very, very little oversight. SOAR, this big, huge nonprofit that was started by one of our former governors and one of our congressmen, Hal Rogers. They started this organization like in maybe 2016, around that time, and it has grown to this multi-million, like in one day our governor handed them, and I mean, it was on a big news report. They've got a picture of them on a big stage where our governor handed them a $40 million check in one day. $40 million. Now, ask me what they do. What is their expertise,
I
Hillbilly?
What is it? Hey, Hillbilly, what is
They
their expertise?
they are a matchmaking service. So their only job is to bring companies together, bring
Oh,
people together.
yeah, it's like an
They have
economic development corporation kind of thing.
Yes, yes, exactly. An economic development type of thing.
I see.
Absolutely.
All right.
They came in here and they taught everybody how to start a nonprofit organization and how to partner with other entities to get all this federal money.
Interesting. I sometimes feel like, well, I would be breaking my iron law, but I feel like if I could just, like bend a couple of personal morals, break through a couple of ethical barriers, I can be a rich, rich man. Hey, do you know what today is? Today
It
is
is
September
the
19th.
1 year anniversary of Mullins's death.
It is.
Yes.
This is, guys, just so you know, it doesn't show the actual shooting, but this is the footage. Look up in the upper corner there. It was September 19th, 2024 that Judge Mullins was killed. Now, one of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention is an article that came out in the Mountain Eagle. Now, I don't have to get into this totally, but let's just say the Mountain Eagle is the local printed newspaper. They also have a website. I know that they are not fans of yours. They are not fans of almost anybody who talks about this case. They've actually reached out to me on only one occasion, asking me to attribute, things, and so I'm attributing. This is from the Mountain Eagle, but they did this report that was 1 year later, and I have this part that includes Mr. Dotson, Mr. Pillersdorf, that I want to read real quick, and then I want to get your take on it. Okay, so they're talking about a motion that was filed that we've covered here on the channel. I know you've covered on your channel, that says Daniel Dotson told the Kentucky State Police that one of the girls had video of Mullins having sex in his office. It doesn't elaborate in the motion, but says one of the plaintiffs in the suit, Sabrina Adkins, told the Attorney General's office that she witnessed such a tape. We have heard that proffer where she did say that. You and I have talked about this, right? It does not
Mhm.
include her further statement that she did not know the woman and did not have the tape, or the subsequent interview the AG's detectives did with Chad Brown, who she claimed did have the tape. Brown told investigators he never had a videotape, but did have an audio tape, and would only speak to police if they could get pending charges against him dismissed. Detectives said they could not do that, and Brown refused to speak further. Okay, Pillersdorf, Ned Pillersdorf. By the way, we've had him here on the channel before. He is a lawyer that is representing both Ms. Atkins and the estate of Ms. Hill in their lawsuit against Deputy Fields and Mickey. Well, it used to be Mickey Steins. Now it's the current sheriff. Anyway, Pillersdorf, who is now running for Congress, has characterized the courthouse as a brothel, using the Fields guilty plea and the fact that using Fields' guilty plea, not the Fields, and the fact that Fields was employed as a deputy as evidence. In an emailed exchange with the Mountain Eagle, Pillersdorf said several women had contacted him claiming to have been sexually exploited because of pending criminal cases before Letcher District Court. He declined to say who had contacted him, citing confidentiality rules. He said he did forward one woman's information to Stein's defense lawyers, who we know are Jeremy and Carrie Bartley. Pillersdorf said that circumstantial evidence suggests that Steins knew or should have known that the women were being assaulted, which is what he alleges in the lawsuit. So no surprise there. However, Steins was never asked about Mullins or any other officials in his deposition, which I find interesting. And when asked specifically, Pillersdorf could not name any other courthouse employees or officials whom he had evidence against. And when asked if he had any evidence that Mullins ever had sex with any women who had cases before his court, he acknowledged he did not. Quote, all I know is some women have come forward about Mullins, Pillersdorf said. I have no idea if it is true or false. I would love your thoughts.
Well, whenever this first started kicking off, okay, I went on to several shows and I was co-guest, I guess is the right word. I was a co-guest with Pillersdorf.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a fan of his. I have never really been a fan of his, even though I hired him to defend me. But that is where I base my opinion off of, is being his client. And he is not a very nice person, like, just to talk to. He's very rude. He's very disrespectful. He's very short. He's like 5 foot tall.
Oh,
And
I thought you
so,
meant like short of like temper or something like
yeah,
that. No, you mean his
well,
stature is
both,
short.
both. He is very short. Whenever I went to him to try and get him to represent me, his response to me was, "What did you do? They don't just do this. You had to piss somebody off. Who did you piss off?" Instead of it being, like, why did it have to be something that I did? And this was a response, to something that I did. I didn't do anything, but I was the mother of a missing child who couldn't find my son, even though he was right next door. We didn't know that at the time, and I couldn't find my son. And they really, really acted bad towards me and treated me horrendously. And that whole experience was it was so traumatic. It was so traumatic. And I called them on it. I called them on their unprofessionalism and how they were behaving. And they didn't like that, and that was all I did. That was all I did.
And they
Um,
brought charges against you because of that?
Yeah, so just to explain, so we lived in a holler, and it's a one way in, one way out. Oh, it's a one way, or it kind of goes around and comes out. It's a one way street, and it comes out at the end on this other side. Well, there's a fire department there, and so we had lived there 10 years. My son, everybody knew us. We knew everybody. And my son asked if he could ride down to the fire department and ask the chief if they won their baseball tournament that Saturday, if they could ride the fire truck with the sirens and the lights, which is something that our town in Neon did all the time for baseball stuff. And I was like, sure, go ahead, but you come straight back. And he said, okay. So he gets on his little bicycle and he rides down there. 15 minutes went by. He hadn't come back. So I got in my car and drove down there to get him. And I drove down there and they were all standing out at the fire department washing their fire trucks and stuff. And I said, hey, have y'all seen Alan? And they were like, yeah, he was just right here. He just went down the road behind the funeral home. So I figured he was on his way home. So I drove around the block and went back up to the house, and I couldn't find him. So I drove around the block about 10 times. Still, and I was hollering out the window, and I still couldn't find him. Well, now, unbeknownst to me, he had seen one of his little friends at her grandmother's house playing in the yard, and he had went up to their house, and he went in their house, and his bicycle was up underneath the carport where nobody could see it. And so he couldn't hear us hollering for him. but that's where he was at the whole time. They accused me of unaliving my son and burying his little body in my basement. They, you name it, I was accused of it. The state, somebody, or my pastor, actually, his son had lived in that on that block, and I asked him. I said, "Have you seen Alan?" And he was like, "No, I've not seen him." Well, he talked to his dad, who was my pastor, and my pastor came down. So the more people you ask, "Have you seen my child?" the more people start looking for your child.
Sure. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And but anyway, because of that situation, we found Alan. Right after, it wasn't long after that, we found him, and I was indicted on, because now this is when they started hounding me, trying to get me to voluntarily sign and allow them to open a social services case on me. And I refused. I was not going to voluntarily sign and allow them to do this. Well, because I wouldn't let them do that, it got all bad. That's when I had to go hire Ned Pillersdorf. I said, they will not leave me alone. They keep hounding me, trying to force me to sign this and let them open a case on me. So Ned charged me $900 to send a letter on his letterhead, one sentence, and says, maybe two, but says, I'm representing her. If you have any questions or need to say anything, you need to contact me. Well, they didn't do that. Nobody. They said, you tell him. We don't have to tell him nothing. They didn't abide that I had a lawyer. None of them cared. Well, they kept on and kept on and kept on. Had an emergency removal hearing. That was when I went in front of Judge Mullins. My mommy went with me because at 5 o'clock at night, I have Deb Collier's husband, who is one of our magistrates now. Her husband is a retired social worker. He calls me at 5 o'clock in the evening and says, "You have court at 9 o'clock in the morning." I'd never been served with anything, didn't know nothing about it. He knew I didn't know nothing about it, or why are you calling me at 5 o'clock in the evening, telling me I better be there at 9 in the morning? So I call Ned's office and tell him, and she says, "Well, you need to go ahead and show up. You show up and tell him that, he had court. That was too fast. He can't be there tomorrow. You need to tell him to postpone it, continue it."
Mm-hmm.
So now, if my children had been in some danger, continuing it, right? My kids
Right.
weren't in no danger. They were just using this they were using the system and the court to try and bully me, because I would not bend to what they were trying to force me to do. They don't tell you that if they open a case on you with social services, you automatically go on a child abuse and neglect registry for 7 years. You cannot work around children. You cannot work with the elderly. You cannot even volunteer at your own children's school or for any of their sports. And my children are athletes, and they have always been. They had never, not the first time, ever gotten a call about me or my kids. Not the first time. This was all a made up tactic that they were going to show me who was boss. Now, mind you, they had no idea what I knew or what I didn't know or how much money I had to hire an attorney. They didn't know any of that back then. It just so happened that they picked on the wrong one.
Well, I mean, this story is emblematic of a lot of the stories that are coming out from women that are coming forward. I mean,
Yeah.
Sabrina Atkins and Jennifer Hill, getting back to Pillersdorf here for a second, he told me that, if there's one then there's 30, I think is what he said, right? If there's one, then there's 30. And I think that's what he was trying to tell the Mountain Eagle. Listen, we've got 3 women who are on the record against Ben Fields, and I've got people calling me. I've I've sent one of them over to the Bartleys. Now, as much as you don't like Ned, and I totally get that, but I think he's right where he's like, hey, we've got 3. That means there's 90. I now have 4. That means there's 120 of the. There's like tons of these.
Yes, I think he's absolutely correct, but he can't say anything other than that and be honest. You know, here's my pick with Ned. Why wasn't the judge named in that lawsuit? It was his
Yeah,
chambers.
yeah.
Why wasn't the fiscal court named in that lawsuit? Because come to find out, the fiscal court is the one who's responsible for the jail and the treatment of all of the inmates therein. There are several different people who could have been named in that lawsuit. Judge Mullins was not dead at that time. And I think that Ned was up against the power of what was in Eastern Kentucky, the power of Judge Kevin Mullins. And now this is just what I believe. And, we'll just have to wait and see how this all plays out. But the way that it's played out so far, it makes me think that he got in on this, excuse me, that he got in on this case because he was getting ready to launch his congressional campaign. He's running for Congress.
I think the issue though is that judges have absolute high immunity from stuff like that. That
Well,
they
that's not
do.
what he said. That's not what Ned said when they asked him why he didn't name him. He said, because we have to have a good faith basis to name somebody in a civil lawsuit.
Oh, and it is a federal lawsuit. I remember from the Ellen Greenberg lawsuit. Ellen Greenberg's parents sued employees and former employees of the city of Philadelphia. And so it was like the chief medical examiner, 2 assistant medical examiners, a detective, a sergeant, one of the members of the DA's office, and so forth. The very first thing that happened was it was dismissed against the DA, the assistant DA, because she enjoyed absolute high immunity. And it made me so mad because I think she was the problem. Like she was the main problem, but she enjoyed absolute immunity. And
Mhm.
yeah, I can see Ned saying, or any lawyer saying, "Well, we had to have good faith that we could do that, and we weren't quite there yet." But I don't think that Judge Mullins could have been sued in his professional capacity. Even if that was happening in his chambers, that's one of those crappy things about our system of laws, which I maintain is the best in the world, but it also it's I find it lacking in a lot of ways. Is this whole idea of high official immunity? But
Well, there could have been other people named in that lawsuit. I know that Ben's wife, she worked at the jail. It was told to all of them that when they go to pay their fees, they're to go to the jail to pay them.
that's right.
And
Yeah,
half of the receipts had Angie Fields's name on them.
yeah,
So she was taking these receipts. I think that one of the things that that newspaper man said in his article is an important key, that nobody asked him, Mickey Steins, any questions about those other people in the deposition. Was that negotiated beforehand when they went in, before they even went into that deposition, that there would not be any questions asked? I mean, I'm asking the question, I don't know.
yeah.
Uh, I think that there's a whole lot of talk behind the scenes. That's one of the things that we're discussing, that we're finding out now. I've had people who hired certain attorneys in Whitesburg for their own cases, and I'm talking about civil cases, not criminal cases. And for 10 years, they lost their case. And for 10 years, they're sitting there like, how did we lose that? How did we lose that case? Why didn't our lawyer get up and say anything? You know, like, why did they do such a crappy job? And now watching my show, they found out or figured out that their own lawyer was on the take. Their own lawyer set them up from the jump.
Hmm.
Like, there's so much of this stuff, and they've got proof. Like, they've got the proof. They've got
No,
all the paperwork.
when you're talking they, tell people what you mean. People are coming to you now, right? Is that what's happening?
Yes, absolutely. But, you know, so, a lot of them are not comfortable coming out yet because, you know, they fought for years and years and were retaliated against. And, you know, they are just now starting to get some normalcy in their life after, you know, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. One family has lost over $1 million. And
In
we're talking about property. We're talking about civil cases where people had went into our courthouse. And, you know, the only way that we can see it is the judge was complicit, the lawyer that they had was complicit, and, you know, it just goes on and on and on. If there was an actual investigation, you know, like I've had so many people say, you need an office. You need an office somewhere so people who have went through these situations can come to your office and bring all their stuff, you know, and then you can put them in touch with, you know, the real investigators, the real prosecutors who will actually investigate these cases.
Yeah, but that's actually one of those things. A lot of people are afraid of retaliation, right? And like you just said, they're finally in the clear, and the incentive for them to stay quiet is great because they finally have peace and they finally are out of, the I guess from under the spotlight of the judicial system that appears to be extremely corrupt down there in Letcher County. By the way, I don't know that you're all that unique. I think there are thousands of counties in the United States that are like this. It just took
Yes.
one judge being killed for there to be a spotlight on your little corner of America, right? Actually, I think that's a good thing. But that is one of the reasons. There are two things that I set up. I set up a Dropbox
Mhm.
that people can. It's always in the description down below. You can, if there's something that you want to drop in there anonymously that you want Elizabeth to see, you can do that. And
Mhm.
I will anonymize it and I'll send it her way because it's not truly anonymous through Dropbox. I want you guys to know that. Like, you'll just have to trust me that I will anonymize it and send it her way. The other thing, though, is I set up a P.O. box for this very reason. Like, put it in the
Mhm.
mail. Don't put a return address on it. Don't put a note in it. Don't give me any indication of who you are. In fact, it's probably better for you to drive 100 miles and drop it at a post office far away from you. I won't be able to track it back. And if it's about Letcher County, then I will be sharing that with Hillbilly Crime. So, and the P.O. box is on my website. Just, I can do this real quick without getting too distracted. Let's see. Pushing the right buttons. If you go to my website and you click on support me, you can see it pretty quickly, right? You can send a package to P.O. Box 104, Franklin, Pennsylvania 16323. So yeah, if you want to send something to Elizabeth but want to be 100% anonymous, that's where you do it. And hey, listen, I mean, I don't want to encourage anybody to break the law. Don't break the law. But if you do have whistleblowing type material, send it my way. Do it anonymously, and that's the reason that I set that up in the first place. Um, hey, one other, let's see. I mean, that was a nice long conversation just about that one thing. Um, there's one other article that I wanted to bring up, and this is actually where we started tonight with Michael Clark. So this is from the Mountain Eagle 2 days ago. Of course, they write in a very AP style, printed newspaper style. They don't use the word to. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm so glad that I work for a digital publication, not one that has to print a newspaper. Anyway, this is about Michael Clark, who's the minister that we were talking about, and a guy named Brian Sloan, who is the Letcher County jailer. Apparently, that is an elected position, right? The jailer is an elected position.
Yes, but he was not elected. So his brother Bert Sloan was elected, and then he retired right before the shooting.
That's right.
And so it kind of was very suspicious timing. And a lot of people think that, that replacing Mickey was in the works before the shooting. So
Ah,
anyway,
okay.
that's his brother. Brian
Uh,
Sloan is Bert's brother, and they appointed or gave him the job.
okay. So Brian Sloan and Michael Clark are complaining that people are following them. I think the implication is harassing, maybe even stalking. I
Hey, talk about me.
well, let me read this, okay? Clark, who rode with Steins to deliver food to a house the morning of the shooting, has not talked to the media about his experiences before. Clark said he was followed to a rehab event. I think that is so funny.
Now that
I'm so
wasn't me. That was Taya.
okay. Real quick though, it's just I know this is inside baseball, but working for a media company, I find it funny when media companies like put a neon sign pointing to them to like how great we are. This is the first time anybody's talking. I hate that stuff. Just report, will you? But okay. So he's never talked to the media before. Breaking news, everybody. Exclusive, Mountain Eagle. Clark said he was followed to a rehab event more than 100 miles away this summer, and then video clips of his speech about his own past and recovery from addiction were placed on the internet with negative commentary. Quote, they followed me to Mount Sterling. You're talking 2.5 hours away just to record me and put that on the internet, he said. That just goes to show the lengths these people are willing to go to hurt someone else's reputation and character by cutting up someone's testimony and commenting about it. And then it actually brings up the video you talked about earlier. I mean, this was you that did this, right? He's also been
Yes.
accused by people on social media of sending a video of himself masturbating to women in drug rehab. I don't think that's the right. I mean, I've seen the video. I don't know that. Okay, but anyway, the video with a strategically placed image of a police bulletproof vest overlaid was then shown last week on social media by others. He closed his own social media last year after he said mental illness is real. I think he was talking about Mickey there in a personal
Yeah.
video about Steins and Mullins, both of whom he said were friends. Rumors of inappropriate contact with rehab clients began immediately after he posted his talk. There's no truth, he continues, to me having any inappropriate relationship as far as a photograph or video from my past. I don't know what is out there. I was a drug addict for 20 years myself. So he's blaming his drug addict past that, yeah, there's probably videos out there all over the place of him doing all sorts of terrible things. But you showed me something earlier that disputes that timeline, right? I mean, 2019 is when he was pardoned.
Yes.
And this video is from 2021, I understand.
The girl he sent it to and who has shared that video with the rest of us. She came out on TikTok, and are you not going to play it? Her video.
I don't have it up. You can just go ahead and characterize it.
Well, she was very upset. She came out and said, you know that you sent that to me. You were a preacher. You were the rehab man. I was in recovery, and you told me you were a sex addict. and that, you were trying to get me to sleep with you behind your wife's back. None of us are perfect, she says. We all screw up. We've all messed up, and we still keep messing up. But why don't you be a man and admit what you did? Just admit it. That's
Yeah.
all anybody wants you to do. That's all any of us want any of these people to do, is admit what they've done and take accountability for it. They make us take accountability. They have made us take accountability for all the things that we've done, just like the retaliation. Uh, Everybody kind of knows my story. I've been in treatment for recovery for 15 years now, but I had 15 years before that where I wasn't in recovery. But I went and I expunged my entire record. I have experience on both sides of the aisle. I was in jail, and I spent a good amount of time in jail. Pretty much my entire 20s I spent in and out of jail. But I expunged my entire record. I did everything the right way. I went to school. There wasn't no going back. I went my first freshman year, from the very first semester to my master's degree. I really changed my life. And because we're exposing some of this stuff, it's been so long since I expunged my record, I couldn't even find anything about myself. But one of our magistrates, I guess, went and paid one at Truth Finder or one of those services, and dug up all my old uh,
Like your
mugshot
mugshots. Yeah.
and all that stuff, and put them up on Facebook today. And I was like, thank you, man. I've been looking for those. I've been trying so hard to find them myself, and I couldn't find them. And I didn't want to have to pay the money for the subscription to buy, or, for the
That's
Truth
funny.
Finder. So, it just goes to show you that everything that the devil means for evil, God's going to turn it around for our good.
What is a magistrate in your area? What is that position?
They're elected. Your county is broken up into districts, and each district elects a magistrate to represent that district on the fiscal court. And the fiscal court then is the voting party on all of the county's finances. I mean, the fiscal court, and the judge executive has more power than any other position in the county.
So
Huge.
you sent over to me what he had put. He's also not a fan of Elizabeth Jones at Hillbilly Crime.
Well, he's one of Daniel Dotson's big D daddies. He has been part of the Smex trade here in Letcher County. You can't be one of these, allegedly, you can't be one of these men that were paid to have sex with Daniel Dotson's wife and not think that you are part of the Smex trafficking ring, because that's what we're talking about. But all of these people and these men have bragged about this stuff for so many years because they thought that it was all cool. This was all cool stuff. Here, man, look what I got on my phone. You ever see? They are pigs. They're pigs.
What do you think, like if we can come back over to Mickey, what do you think is going to happen next here? I know that there's been a motion to, let's see, there's been a motion for another psych evaluation by the Commonwealth. There's been a motion by the Commonwealth. I think since you and I have talked, there's been a motion by the Commonwealth to change venue. The defense has said no, they don't want that on either one of those things. And the defense has, it was really funny because I read the opposition to the motion to get the second psych evaluation, and it was really funny. There's a part in it, I should bring it up, but there's a part in it where whoever wrote it, Jeremy or Carrie Bartley, talked about how the state is entitled to a psychological evaluation, and it put it in bold, and I even think it underlined it. And usually on a legal document, when they're quoting something from statute or from precedent, and they bold it and underline it, that means that they're adding emphasis. So they will say emphasis added. And I
Mm-hmm.
caught that they didn't say emphasis added. And then when I read the the response from the Commonwealth, they're like, "There's no such thing in the law that we can only have one." It was like
Yeah.
okay, Bartley's. I've been holding you up here, but that was a sneaky little move. That was not a good argument. And I like good lawyering. I was talking to do you know Josh Ritter over at Courtroom Confidential yet? Have you met Josh? Okay,
Mm-mm.
Josh is awesome. He's a former prosecutor and current criminal defense attorney. He has a channel called Courtroom Confidential. He's rad, great guy. And I was telling him, reading documents like this for me as a lay person is the same thing as me like sitting in the gallery watching a tennis match. I'm just like, hmm, hmm. That's me. I'm just like looking at it like, ooh, what a great hit. Like I know nothing about tennis, but I can appreciate
Yeah.
wow, I can't believe he got to that, or wow, I can't believe her backhand on that. Oh wow, it's amazing. Like that's what reading these documents is to me. And
Yeah.
it just bothers me when I see something bad, when I see like an amateurish move out on the proverbial legal tennis court, and they did that. So what do you think's going to happen next?
I personally think they're going to negotiate a plea and put him in a hospital.
And that'll be the end of it, you think?
That's what I think that they're going to end up doing. I mean, I hope that they don't, but I think that that's probably the most likely.
Well, history
What do
is
you
on your side. History is on your side. They usually plea these out, right?
think?
But I'm wondering what incentives are there to keep it in court. Do the Bartleys, in order to get their client the best deal possible, do they need to make these accusations in open court? That I mean, they said that Mickey had good reason to be worried about his wife and daughter. Not just that he was crazy and was worried about his wife and daughter. They've said that he had good reason to worry about his wife and daughter. And I think their defense, being an insanity defense, I think would point to some of the corruption that you have been working to expose for the past year. But I think the Commonwealth. Well, actually, I was going to say the Commonwealth doesn't have the same incentive as they would if it was Letcher County prosecuting this, but it's the Attorney General's office, right?
Yeah, it's the Attorney General's office. I'm really kind of surprised that Jackie Steele is even the one that's prosecuting this because we found out that he's on the board of directors for Operation Unite, and they're which I guess if they chose anybody that was from around here, maybe they would also be on some kind of a board that they're
Probably.
all connected.
Yeah.
But with as many accusations of corruption the way that it is, I'm just kind of surprised that he was the one that they chose, where it's so easy to find the conflicts of them all. But um I also wanted to say that I think it's really important to keep in mind that Jeremy and Carrie Bartley's job is to defend Mickey Steins in this case, this murder case.
Yeah.
It's not their job to uncover the rest of this corruption. I know that people want to, I'm guilty of it myself, especially when this first happened. I thought, oh, it's all going to come out now. How can they not bring it up? But that's not their job. They're not a prosecutor. They're not supposed to be investigating all this stuff. Their job is strictly to get the best deal for Mickey and to defend him in this murder trial. And, I don't think with the video showing him shoot him, I don't think a not guilty is even realistic in any sense of the word. So I think a deal to put him in a hospital for 25 years would be
Yeah, I think you're probably
good.
right.
And I
think you're
think that would
probably
be
right.
a win. I think that would be a win for the Bartleys.
Well, and I think it'd be good for Mickey too. Like,
Mm,
I am convinced that he was not in his right mind in that moment.
yeah.
And as a professional waffler, I reserve the right to waffle back to the other side of that. But I think it was. Jen asks, is Kentucky a Commonwealth? It is. Kentucky is one of
Mhm.
3 Commonwealths in the nation that I can think of. Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts are the only ones that I can think of. But
Virginia.
is Virginia a Commonwealth? Oh,
Yep.
man. There you go. Sandbaby Stitches says that I make them giggle every time I say rad. Well, I am a child of the 80s, man. That's my favorite word. Autumn says, can we see the video? I think she's talking about Michael Clark. You can if you go to Hillbilly Crime on Facebook. You cannot on this video because I don't want to be kicked off of YouTube.
We showed it on mine. We showed
Oh,
all it.
you're braver than I am. Uh, Man, let's see a couple of. Hey, thanks for all the super chats and the gifts of the gifts of memberships and everything tonight, guys. Susan Lewis, tell Elizabeth there is no one so petty as an attorney with a Napoleon complex. That's funny. That's funny. Um, Butterfly says it's hard to believe it's been a year already of Mullins unaliving. You and Hillbilly Crime have done a great job covering this. Mostly Elizabeth. Mostly Elizabeth's. And then Susan's, but you wouldn't compromise your ethics for money. That is true. There is integrity. But there have been times in my life where I'm like, well, how can I get some of this federal money? Because it does seem to just be passed around all the time.
Oh,
List,
yeah.
yeah, welcome to your first live. Uh, yeah, we got a lot of great comments tonight. I think what have we've been at it an hour plus. You got to do your show tonight, right?
Yeah, tell them to come over and we're getting ready to have a
Dang it!
good
I should
show.
have said it. Hang on, hang on.
Oh,
I might be able to do it in arrears, where I can set this up to forward over to your. Let me see if I can do this after the fact. Let's see. Maybe we can
we
make
are
it.
we are going to have we have a firsthand personal story of a victim that we've not heard from
Oh,
before. So,
yeah,
hmm
awesome.
it's
It man or
mhm.
woman?
It's a female, and she has written down her story. She was going to come on the show, but she sat down with her children and explained to them what she had the opportunity to do, and her children asked her not to do it. They just didn't want to go to school and have to deal with it. So I told her if she wanted to write it down and give it to me, I would read it for her. So I'm going to read her personal testimony on my show here.
So you guys head on over to Hillbilly Crime. There is a link down in the description below to get over to her channel. I should have set it up so that it would auto forward to your show. But I guess I told you before we started, I was laying down on our purple couch with a cat cuddling with me. I have become a crazy cat person. Uh, and I just couldn't get myself to move.
We took 2 more in last week.
How many cats is that?
We got 7 now.
Okay, that's Crazy Town. All right, that's Crazy Town.
Well, they keep bringing them to me. I had 5 that are mine that we've rescued. Every one of them we've rescued, and these 2, they wouldn't use the litter box because they're a little bit older than just babies, so they had never used it before, and they were outside cats. So I washed them, bathed them, and put them in a dog cage out on my front porch, and put a litter box in there and a little cat tree, a little small one,
Hmm.
and food and water, and now they've learned how to use a litter box, but they're still staying out on the porch.
Well, the family or the organization that we got our cats from, we adopted them from a rescue, and they're
Mm.
pretty young. I think they were like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months old when we adopted them. So cat size, they're in between, little teenagers, and they've been terrific. I didn't think that I was a cat person. They're the
Oh,
Haynes sisters. They are Betty and Judy Haynes.
oh,
So
I
every
love it.
time both of them walk into a room together, we shout out, "Hey, it's the Haynes sisters!" Because we like musicals. That's an old white Christmas thing. So it's Betty Haynes Fish and Judy Haynes Fish.
Well,
But there
look,
I was.
I just lied. This is one of the this is the baby.
That is a baby. That's a big baby.
Yeah, Alan lets this one in every once in a while, but she lives outside in the cage.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, everybody head over to Hillbilly Crime, watch her. That's a powerful thing that you're going to be doing tonight. How many people do you think? I think they're mostly women, right? But how many people have come to you with stories similar to like what you're doing tonight?
I've had over 10, over 15, probably more than that. I also had another man. We had our first male who came forward and was going to do this big show on my show, and he got threatened, and he's just absolutely terrified. And so he has backed out for right now. But another one has reached out to me, and it's just unbelievable. He said that he got out of there. He got pulled into it, and he said, whenever I realized just how crazy it all was, when you see one of these men walk out in a red leather chaps with a ball gag in his mouth,
Oh dear.
he said it was time for me to go.
Run
And
away.
I don't blame you. You know, like, can you imagine? Yeah, and I'm not just, well, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
la la
just,
la 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 la. Yeah, that's just oof. Yeah. Okay. Well, everybody head over there. Thanks for joining me again, Elizabeth. Hopefully we'll have you back on,
yeah,
soon.
always.
I like the
Yeah,
whole Friday night chat with Elizabeth Jones. I
yeah.
like
Well,
it.
you're working, you're full time YouTubing now.
I am. Yes, I am. I'm actually headed on the road. Oh, that reminds me. Hey, real quick before I know once we go, you need to go, right? So you don't need to hang out and do our postmortem like we normally do. In fact, why don't I just say goodbye to you now? Thank you very much for being here, and then you can start your video, and I'll get my crew over there. Thanks, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. Bye
Bye,
bye.
honey.
Ah, very special thank you to Elizabeth for joining us tonight. She is amazing. Grateful that she's here. Hey, a couple things that I want to make you guys aware of. Number one, uh, I heard from Kirby Carpenter's family. If you guys don't remember, Kirby Carpenter was a entrepreneur down in Mississippi who was murdered, and it was his girlfriend, the mother of his child, and her parents who were arrested and charged with his murder. The trial of of Jeff. Why am I blanking? Hold on. Why am I blanking? Anyway, the trial begins next week. It's going to be covered by Court TV. There will be cameras in the courtroom, so we will be watching that trial together here on the channel. So if you're into watching trials, the Murder of Kirby Carpenter is it is one that you should definitely check out. Number 2, I am going to be going on the road here in a couple weeks, but I am preparing myself. I got a little laptop. I'm preparing myself so that when I am away from home, I'll still be able to live stream. So you will see in the next couple weeks me elsewhere. There will be a couple days where I miss because there will be travel days, but basically I'm going back home to California to visit the folks and some friends. And so I'm actually going to be spending my birthday out there. I'm going to see my folks, my some nieces and nephews, my sister, my brother-in-law. Well, actually, lots of brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law. I'm going to see them all, old friends. It's going to be great. I'm going to spend my birthday out there. It's going to be awesome. So, yeah, I just wanted to give you the heads up on that. Let's go back to the website just to real quick bring this up. Hey, if you are on the site and you click on this little icon right there, that will take you to the fish tank where we hang out on Facebook. There's always an open invitation for you guys to hang out with us on Facebook there in the tank. If you ever want to get in touch with me, if you click on this little icon right there, that will take you to a form where you can send me an email. I always get the emails. I read them all. I get a couple hundred a week probably, so I don't reply to all of them, but I see them all. So if there's something that you really want me to see, definitely do that. If you are a whistleblower and you would like to anonymously send anything my way, click on the little support me tab, which is where I put it. There is my address right there. P.O. Box 104, Franklin, PA 16323. Did I miss anything? Did I get everything? Just want to check out. Jesse Robinson said they fostered for a while during COVID as people were returning pets, which is now why you have 9 cats. Jen says, this veterinarian household, we have a 3-legged cat because of course we do. Yeah, good on you. That's awesome. We've never had cats before. We've always been dog people, but I do dig these little felines. They're good kiddos. With that, guys, have a terrific weekend. I bid you adieu, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.